Trump's election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history.
So I woke up this morning, picked up the Washington Post, and the headline read, "Trump takes power." I don't think so. Here's the power. Here's the majority of America right here. We are the majority.
Trump goes nuts after Michael Moore destroyed him on live TV. Let's not waste time. Donald Trump is spiraling again, and the trigger is the same one it's been for years. Michael Moore gets on television, lays out exactly how the Trump machine works, backs it up with receipts, and boom, another presidential tantrum. Tonight, we're going to walk through the biggest moments where Michael Moore dismantled Trump's reality TV mythology in public, why those takedowns still stick, and why every single one sends Trump into meltdown mode.
New president vows to end American carnage. Mr. Trump, we are here to vow to end the Trump carnage.
They really believe that the average normal American wants to hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people that got us here to this great country. And to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way.
If you appreciate clean, fact-based narration without the fluff, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which Michael Moore moment first made the Trump act click for you. This channel runs on evidence you can verify on public, trusted outlets, and everything I'm about to say is documented in those sources. Start with the first big warning shot. It's 2016. Most of the pundit class is laughing off a Trump win.
The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want the threat of violence. We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where it ends. We go to vote. Who wins, wins. Half the time I've been very happy with who's won, and the other half of the time I haven't been. And we move on with our lives. The fact that the way that what you just played here, I hadn't heard Trump utter those words. I'd heard somebody say that he said them, but to hear him say that about they can shoot through the media, the assassins, go ahead and fire, and all those other things you just played, it's like they really believe that the average normal American wants to hear that.
Michael Moore goes on HBO and calmly explains the Rust Belt math. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. He warns that if you combine economic pain, media oxygen, and a protest vote, Trump can thread the Electoral College needle. That clip has lived rent-free in Trump's head for years because it kills the myth he loves most, that his rise was some unstoppable masterclass in political genius.
Election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good. For a day. Yeah, maybe a week. Possibly a month. And then, like the Brits, who wanted to send a message, so they voted to leave Europe, only to find out that if you vote to leave Europe, you actually have to leave Europe. And now they regret it.
Moore didn't manifest anything. He recognized a pattern, resentment packaged as populism, amplified by billions in free coverage, and said it out loud on national TV. That alone made the Trump brand look small. And if there's one thing the Trump brand can't tolerate, it's scale. Then Moore filmed Michael Moore in Trumpland, right in Ohio, and spoke directly to the persuadables.
I don't think they really are in touch with where the majority of Americans are at. The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want a threat of violence. We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where it is.
That Donald Trump is a big believer in capitalism and free enterprise and the sort of thing that's driven us into the ground, this belief that you could just do whatever you want and it doesn't matter who gets hurt by it. And I don't really see him changing, but I think he knows he's been on TV. You know, I mean, he's a performance artist. He knows what to say and he knows how to make this appeal.
You think it's BS?
I think it's, well, please, I don't use that kind of language.
He didn't sneer at voters. He respected their anger and then separated it from the con man exploiting it. That tone is kryptonite to Trump. Moore's empathy for ordinary people combined with a ruthless autopsy of the salesman promising gold leaf miracles. That formula works. It explains, it doesn't just insult. And when you explain the trick, the magician starts sweating. After the election, Moore didn't disappear into the green room circuit.
They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people that got us here to this great country. And to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way, where and you think of all the, you know, the things that we have and we've given the world, you know, and the anger and hatred toward Muslims and Arabs. Steve Jobs. I mean, this never gets discussed. Maybe I'm just a trivia nerd, but he's born of Muslim parents. His parents were Arab, and they put him up for adoption. They had to put him up for adoption.
He literally went to Trump Tower, cameras rolling, to confront the incoming president about Muslim bans and bigotry. Trump dodged. The optics were terrible for a guy who loves optics. The self-styled tough guy won't take basic questions face to face. Right after that came the Women's March. While Trump was foaming about crowd size, Moore was on stage converting catharsis into a checklist.
Because I know a lot of people in Michigan that are planning to vote for Trump, and they don't necessarily like him that much, and they don't necessarily agree with him. They're not racist and rednecks, they're actually pretty decent people. And so I wanted to sort of, after talking to a number of them, I wanted to write this. And Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them. It was an amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the Brexit states.
Call your representatives, jam the switchboards, fill town halls, register voters, win the midterms. Trump feeds off applause, Moore converts it into turnout. There's a reason one of those strategies survives a news cycle and the other changes who controls Congress. Then came Fahrenheit 11/9, 2 hours of receipts. No fairy tales, no secret sources, just the playbook on film.
He knows something. He knows how to manipulate a dumbed-down population whose schools have been wrecked, whose media is just insipid and stupid and doesn't give people the facts about what's going on. So the public is easily manipulated by somebody like him. Those who vote for him. He had record turnouts. He has the largest rallies. He supports a 21st century version of fascism, of marrying the state and capital together.
This president-elect doesn't seem engaged at all. He's more engaged with tweeting about Alec Baldwin on SNL.
Yeah.
5 hours after the show finishes at 1 a.m. And by 6 a.m., he's not funny, sad, not watchable. And it's like, you've got time for that? And you haven't taken one of the national security briefings? You've taken only 3 of them in this first month?
Attack the press to create an enemy. Reward loyalists and punish challengers. Scapegoat immigrants and racial minorities to keep the base engaged. Flood the zone with nonsense so facts feel optional. Undercut elections, then claim you're the victim of the very systems you're gaming. The documentary's power isn't that it called Trump a bad guy. Twitter can do that. Its power is that it shows the method.
You live here in Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them. And on November 8th, Election Day, although they lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce, and now the wife and kids are gone. The car's been repoed. They haven't had a real vacation in years. They're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan where you can't even get a fucking Percocet. They've essentially lost everything they had, except one thing. The one thing that doesn't cost them a cent and is guaranteed to them by the American Constitution, the right to vote.
Once you see the pattern, you stop being surprised. And when the stunts stop surprising people, they stop working as well. That's why clips from the film keep resurfacing. And that's why every time they do, Trump world scrambles to change the subject. Through impeachment, through the pandemic, through the big lie, Moore kept the message simple enough to fit in a lower third without losing the point.
And was adopted by the Jobs family.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be talking to you maybe on this device right now in this way without this offspring of a Muslim or an Arab. And I think most Americans, we get down on our knees and thank God that we are the children of immigrants, that we built this country with immigrants. And the fact that we have somewhere, depending on what numbers you want to believe in, somewhere between 9 million and 11 million jobs right now that we do not have enough people to fill. We have upwards to 11 million unfilled jobs, and as we are told, we have maybe 11 million immigrants who aren't here legally. Geez, doesn't that just, if you have a heart, if you have love in you, if you're proud of this country that was built by immigrants, doesn't somewhere in your head go, geez, we need 11 million jobs filled, we have 11 million people that need citizenship. Why don't we go there? Well, I do, and I think a lot of people are like me, and I think that they are going to be very surprised. I'm talking about the Trump people and the MAGA nation by what's going to happen on Tuesday. Not only do I feel, to answer your question 10 minutes later, that I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast. Absolutely. I feel it more. Now, I know I don't want to say it too loudly because our work isn't done.
Right.
We all have doors to knock on tomorrow. We all have to make sure we get people to vote.
Nobody is above the law. Lying during a pandemic kills. A mob trying to overturn an election is not tourism. It's an authoritarian move. He repeated those lines everywhere, on cable, in interviews, on his own podcast, in print, and every time he brought names, dates, and video along for the ride. Meanwhile, Trump screamed in all caps, threatened networks, teased lawsuits, sued a few, and adopted fresh enemies by the week.
If something happens, a Donald Trump president, in his presidency, he is going to react in a way that, talk about taking away people's rights, talking about clamping down in an authoritarian way, in the way that he likes to think about, and nobody's going to be able to discuss then, where the hell were you in the 2.5 months leading up to taking office, and you didn't bother to attend the most important job, and I just say this to him, I gotta believe he's watching.
Yeah.
You know,
when somebody says his name, the TV turns on.
well, I tweeted out.
Yeah.
You live here in Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
One of those approaches ages, the other curdles. Here's the part that really makes Trump go berserk. Moore talks about money in a way regular people recognize. He ties the donor class tax cuts and anti-union judges to your actual bills: health insurance, prescriptions, rent, groceries. He points out that while Trump cosplays as a blue-collar savior, the policy pipeline keeps delivering for boardrooms.
They might be penniless, they might be homeless, they might be fucked over and fucked up. It doesn't matter because it's equalized on that day. A millionaire has the same number of votes as the person without a job. 1. And there's more of the former middle class than there are in the millionaire class. So on November 8th, the dispossessed will walk into the voting booth, be handed a ballot, close the curtain, and take that lever, or felt pen or touchscreen, and put a big fucking X in the box by the name of the man who has threatened to upend and overturn the very system that has ruined their lives. Donald J. Trump. They see that the elites who ruined their lives hate Trump. Corporate America hates Trump. Wall Street hates Trump. The career politicians hate Trump. The media hates Trump after they loved him and created him, and now hate him. Thank you, media. The enemy of my enemy is who I'm voting for on November 8th. Yes, on November 8th, you, Joe Blow, Steve Blow, Bob Blow, Billy Bob Blow, all the blows get to go and blow up the whole goddamn system because it's your right.
That punctures the working class hero costume faster than any insult ever could. You can shrug off a tweet. It's tougher to shrug off a deductible. Moore also breaks the fourth wall on the media economy. He says out loud that Trump gamed the ratings model, that news executives treated a campaign like a cliffhanger, and that the spectacle was subsidized because it was lucrative.
None of what he said was true, but that didn't matter. He knew how to communicate to the American public. He knew how to tell them what they wanted to hear. He went all over Wisconsin the last week saying, I'm gonna make you all rich. I'm gonna make you all rich. You're gonna make you all rich. Well, geez, who wouldn't like to hear that, right? Right, ma'am, how do I look tonight? How do I look? What would you say? Amazing, thank you. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it really made me feel good. And that's how he worked, right? He knew how to do it because he was a TV star. He was already a beloved American TV star. Do you realize in the first year, I'm talking about The Apprentice, by the way, the looks on your face, you know. He was the host of a show called The Apprentice. How many people in here watch The Apprentice every week when Donald Trump was on? Can I see a show of 1, 2, 3, 4 in the balcony?
He says that on the same platforms that cash the checks. That's not just spicy commentary, it's a mirror. Trump thrives in a world where no one names the profit motive. Moore names it. And he doesn't stop at the media did it. He ends with action. Here's your representative's number. Here's the committee calendar. Here's a special election you've never heard of that will decide whether your hospital keeps an ICU.
Oh my God. You realize that his first year on the air, on some of those shows, that first season, he had over 40 million viewers. Last week on TV, the largest rated show was America's Got Talent. Not ironically titled, by the way, it's a real show. It had 13.1 million viewers. He had 40 million people watching us. And I realized, I guess this isn't that crowd. But I want to tell you, in between the Hudson River and La Cienega Boulevard, there are a lot of people that loved him because he knew how to keep it simple, stupid, right?
That turn from performance to plan is exactly what Trump can't fight, because it moves viewers off the couch and into the game. You can chart the feedback loop like a weather map. Moore drops a segment that translates Trump's chaos into plain English. The clip breaks out of the politics bubble and hits independents and low-information audiences who recognize themselves in the examples.
Struggling to get by, that much harder to get by. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And to alleviate their pain.
I've asked everybody to think of 3 people that maybe they know at work or school or whatever that aren't going to vote, to get them to the polls, drive them to the polls, take them to lunch afterwards, have a party after work, after you've taken the office to go vote. We have work to do in these 48 hours. But having said that, I'm very optimistic and hopeful, and frankly, I know people watching this, Mike, how can you say that?
Yeah.
You know, we have all these crazy people and all the Trumpsters and MAGA Nation. And what I say to them is, honestly, I have a lot of personal, deep faith in my fellow Americans.
Yeah, and it's definitely
they're going to do the right thing.
It's a very important sentiment. I think a lot of people are definitely counting on the goodness of Americans to see this through. Let me just talk about your state, Michigan, for a moment. I want to talk about the last time you joined us back in July when Biden was still running. You had this to say about his support for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Take a listen.
The fact that he would decide to hug Netanyahu, to go there and tell him, as the tape you just showed in November, just people wanting a ceasefire, that's it. No, he goes, no. This has, I think, really rattled people in my state.
If you're tired of noise and want clean, sourced narration that respects your time, here's the ask. Like this video so more people actually see it. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next breakdown, because we're not done, not by a long shot. Drop a comment with the Michael Moore moment that first made the Trump act make sense to you, and tell me why it landed. I read the comments, I pin the best ones, and I build future episodes around what you find most useful. Share this with one person who still thinks it's all just opinions. Receipts change minds. Facts still matter. And yes, despite the chaos, that's exactly why some people are working so hard to drown them out. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.